stay focused, believe in yourself. Do work on building yourself. Grow from it, learn from it. Check the balance and stay balanced.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment. Siyabulela ngobukho benu. And we are still inviting you more, to a Black Man Season podcast. We are trying by all means to bring you information up front. This is a small town, a place called Edutwa. It has bred a lot of people. We have legends coming from this side. The likes of Mr. Our former president, Thabo Mbeki. So when it comes to what it did, to a political environment, what it did, to change the form, of freedom and the fighting, it has done a lot of things. But asina lwas, singo born freeze, Tina, we are not really informed about a lot of things, and siyabulela sithi ke sifumane a chance whereby we are going to be introduced to people that can take us up front, basinike some information that can help us go through, some issues like that. We know nothing of. Siyabona nje manje sisiva kuthiwa ANC, PAC, all these political parties, but we are still not informed, and we are still a generation that is not, up front when it comes to, politics, when it comes to freedom fighters, all the information like that. And segment yethu yanamhlanje, we're about to indulge to that. Mr. Chu, unjani bhuti?
Akhona mnakwethu.
Yes, bhuti.
Ndiyavuya uyibeka kuhlelo nami ndiyaqoma ndizayithatha ndizokuphikisa xa uthi siborn freeze mandiyithathe loo nto leyo.
Yes, sure.
Kuba noko ndingafama ndikabigqokogqoko yinabi. La era ye-apartheid mandiyithathe ke. Otherwise now standard kuzoqala sendivile mnakwethu.
Yes, bhuti. Otherwise, how was your week, bhuti?
Iveki yam ebraybe hectic kakhulu. But yena ndi-highlight ndinomphanga but masingangeni inzulu ke kule. Colleague of mine passed away, Bisando celebrator. 24th September, we celebrate his 60th birthday. He did a retirement party. Then a week later on a Saturday, she passed away. So yeah, mixed emotions. Otherwise, one won't be happy more. Because it's petting gulu.
Yes.
For the doctor says sell a senyat.
Comes to take us through, put it.
Umkhulu andifuna umchaza ngokwami kuba ngubani but ngumkhulu walona kwinto yonke. Ngumkhulu wa ngeminyaka as you can see sibukutshilo. Ngumkhulu wa knowledge. Knowledge about country yethu, status quo of our country, both politically and otherwise. Economic status, I'm sure unayo into anayo uluvo lwakhe ngento ezenzekayo because umuntu from what I know about him, the little I know about him,
yes,
unayo information anayo of which andizoyithetha ngokwamkelo ndozayizisa nayo ngokwakhe. Kholo tju grand
fika hathi tju kunjani
right mkhulu. Kholo yasikala ke ngawusinike nje ubuwena ngubani.
Ndingusithembiso manifesto Malusi.
Okay.
Ndizalelwe eNqamakwe half a century ago. And I grew up in Butterworth. Yeah, my primary school, high school, and everything I did in Butterworth. I went on to the University of Transkei. It's called Wusuna. In Tata. February 1989. Then I, like everyone, work as, and then you are the then Republic of Transkei. Umtata was the city, was the capital city. We're moving from the second biggest town, which was the industrial hub of the region or the republic, and then to Umtata, the main city. It was all the excitement. The first time I was to stay away from home. I was never into a boarding school or stayed with relatives. I was always at the household. There were a lot of expectations, enthusiasm and everything. At that time, the late 80s, there was already in the Transkei then an opening up of political engagement and dialogue. And one was caught by the back of the student movement.
Okay.
I was fortunate because we had somebody in the likes of Professor Fikeni, so my daughter, was a senior student in political science. They had founded an organization called UNIMEPS, which was the University Movement for the Advancement of Political Science. Basically for students who were not doing political science as a course. So then, and he was very helpful because he could never show his political affiliation. It was an environment where we could grow, all of us politically, regardless of where you come from, in terms of your political background. I think it was there where one wandered in the world of wisdom and knowledge. So that was the thing. As a critical person, because even at junior secondary school, high school, one was engaged in debating societies. And growing up in a relatively poor township, Wagas, part of Msobo township in Batawet. One was then drawn naturally to the struggle, and I participated in a lot of things, which were not necessarily political. Okay. In a sense, we had an association for it was called AIDS and Sexuality Association of Youth Organizations, ASAYO, which was a concentrated mainstream organization. The Youth Formation were part of that. Then there was the Children's Rights Committee, which was organized and led by Anlord and Patro, who were dealing with kids who were growing up in the trauma settlements, as a TP, the Mtata, as a waterfall. That was my main interest at that time. Of course, I was part of student movement. We were part of
student movement. Level, was it high school or
varsity?
That's when you get introduced into politics and
varsity. Because when we were still at high school, we were still underground. Our teachers who tried to infuse that knowledge were suppressed, so it was not easy to be open about everything.
So, just to paint a picture in Tata Injani during that time, so we, for instance, in Pasijonga, Subugala movies or this is about apartheid, it was happening in big cities, the violence, all of that. So how was the impact? How did it affect even the smaller towns?
Yeah, it did affect Transkei. Because Transkei was a product of apartheid.
Okay.
With the acts in the 1960s, where the Transkei, you see, as a self-governing territory, was created. Probably 13 years or even more before 1976, when a republic was declared. The apartheid regime had an interest in what was happening in Transkei.
Okay.
When we arrived at UNITA, we were told stories of how the apartheid police and the agents came into the homeland and invaded and persecuted some of the activities of the time. One comes to mind is Ubura, as we affectionately call the man, Ubathandwa Ndondo from Ekala, was the first president of the SACSI of the university in the very early 80s of the establishment of that university. He was assassinated in his hometown, but he was already persecuted and expelled from the unit. The presence of the police whenever there were riots, there were all too many. Whether we were boycotting some boxing tournaments under the umbrella of the non-racial sport at the time, the police would come in. Tear gas and rubber bullets were fired. One important moment in 1989 was when there was a massive demonstration to end death sentence. The president at that time, although he was token or honorary to a certain extent, because we were the military council in charge of the Republic, the late Chutandamas Ufako. We went to the presidential palace to demand the release of Comrade Mayapi of Fort Malan. He was on death row at that time. His brother had already been assassinated years before. It was a place where you were conscious of what was happening in the Greater Republic. Okay. There was no shortage of police violence. Even if you were just doing, you're not happy with the lecturer, you're not happy with the whole exam system. What is called a YEMAC, you see, it was very brutal at that time. The load in the second test, which was the junior examination, was aimed at excluding a lot of students from the institution. Because one test was to account for 40% of the mark. And to fail that test, you are kicked out. It was very painful because some we believed years later that there was a campaign to eliminate activists and so-called ringleaders from the higher education institutions. Okay. We knew that some were not even students, they were agents of the intelligence service of the apartheid regime who had just registered, and then they would monitor the movements of the activists. Then the whole issue of academic exclusion had some political connotations. But even in terms of the rules, so that were there in the prospectus, we knew that was a problem. When we would then have demonstrations against management and council and senate, police would be called in. Whether it was free increment, the police would come in. Therefore, political violence was ever present.
So when at Ugogiawako University, you were not there to study the political science, but you find yourself.
Yeah, I was a commerce student as early as grade 8. I had two visions. Okay. One was to be a teacher. That was my first love. Oh. The second love was to be a chartered accountant. Oh. I loved accounting. I still do. But as one got into politics and then was very busy in many things, I was a sport person. When I left high school, I was a junior flyweight boxer. Oh, okay. And I realized that I had to join the boxing club.
So you did boxing, because no Mr. Nelson Mandela.
We had to, but because I grew up in a township where boxing was one of those sports. Of course, soccer was the sport in Butterworth. It was professional clubs, Fingo Chiefs, Blackburn Rovers, Level Experience, which was a police club. They were part of the professional setup at that time. But as a last born in my class throughout my state high school, because when I did grade 10, I would stand at 8 form 3 at that time, I was only 13 and a half. Yeah. And I passed my matric at 16 years, 7 months. Sure. When I went to varsity. When I was 17, I was already at varsity in May, and then I was already expelled. Because we were part of the demonstration to challenge the junior examination, free increment, a lot of other things. And we were part of the hunger strikes in solidarity with political prisoners, who most of them were released that year. I can't recall that Omgov, Sulu, after Masango of the PAC, were released that year, 1989. They were not to live long after that. So, but there was a lot on my plate. And I took long to graduate my first degree, which was BCom. And then teaching then became an option, because I had to fend for myself. I could no longer be dependent anymore. Okay. And then I had to then postpone any ambition of being a chartered accountant. Okay. Probably because of the politics that I acquired, it was less and less of an interest. I would probably now think back and say probably I needed to go back there, but I needed to produce more CAs rather than me being one.
Wow.
Because if I didn't take teaching, there will be less of them. I'm proud of what I produced in terms of become graduates and others, you see, from my former place of employment at Bashe High in Tujo. For 23 years I was there, and we produced a lot of graduates. Some already are working for high-profile companies in chartered accountancy, in Pretoria and elsewhere. If you produce better people, you see, you must be proud of yourself. So that's what Julius Nyerere told us. That to be a better leader, a good leader actually, you have to produce better leaders than yourself. So that's our mission in life, our ministry, so that we produce better leaders.
All right, yeah, now fast forward to Masithethe or life after varsity. Now we are a professional, we are a teacher. Then kukho political parties now. Waphetha uaffiliate kwiphi mandibe ngoba ndizothi wajoyina lo ndlela leyo ndingayibeka ngayo. Waphetha uaffiliate kwiphi because ngolu hlobo uyitsho ngalo ngexesha nipha I'm sure ininzi njengoba usitsho uthi naba exposed ko Dr. Soma Dr. Fikeni. Izininzi izinto i-doctrines abazifakileyo ezingqondweni zenu and ne-ideologies xa senipha ke ngonihleli ni-engageana and ke ngokwezi parties zine-ideologies ezingafaniyo. Kona zingabe ziyelelene but somehow ziyahluka. So waphetha i-attention yakho ibiwa yiphi ideology, yiphi political party?
Having engaged in the UNIMES program, watching videos of the Youth League of the 40s, the interviews with AP Mda, the late, and he was in Ezra already, and other leaders, you see, of the liberation movement. By April 1989, I associated myself with the Pan-Africanist Congress of Tanzania. We were part of a cell, not many, less than 10 of us at the university, led by the late Mzubanzi Noes, the leader of Natosa, and Kato at that time. We met a lot of comrades. By October, the very first year, we launched a part of the student organization. And then the rest is history. Yeah. When I went to the profession, for 3 years I was not affiliated. And by 1997 I chose the Cape African Teachers Union, which was a professional association without any political alignment. And I think I was hooked there because the politics I had gathered, especially with some small left-wing organizations like the International Socialist Movement, is that the union has to be an organization of all workers, irrespective of your political affiliation and ideology. And for the working class to be powerful and be united, we had to keep the union movement, you see, independent as much as we can. Then I became a member of the union, CAR2, and then we changed the name in 2000 to USAPE, which is the Union of South African Professional Educators. And by 2006, the 7 affiliates of NAPTOSA, the federation, came together, and we formed NAPTOSA as independent union tradition. I don't think I was fortunate, because I'm not sure it is fortunate for one to be given responsibility of leading. I do lead from the branch until 2012, when I was elected the professional chairperson of NAPTOSA in the Eastern Cape, and then by extension a member of the National Executive Committee and the National Finance Committee of the Union, to build a base in the Eastern Cape and then growing the Union nationally, and also enriching my professional orientation and ethos. We always say teach with dignity.
Yes.
That's where you got to be challenged, because we met other unions which had a tradition which was not necessarily close to ours. In the unions of black people, there were a lot of politicking, I would put it that way. Yes, unionism is there, but we were taught other values, you see, in NAPTOSA. We were criticized at some point that we're in a union which was predominantly white, which was not true, I would say, at all, because the demographics of NAPTOSA were not different from those of the country. See, it's sad that there was a union of English teachers, SATA, which became NUE, which was an affiliate of NAPTOSA, and then became NAPTOSA. They were white, naturally, but when we came together as other unions, they became a minority. But, and strangely, the whites in NAPTOSA are more ANC than DA. We had thought that there would be more of DA supporters.
Okay.
There were more.
But on emphasis on that, you know, like what were their values?
We were taught tolerance. What was theorized and only in the letter, not the spirit, you see, of the founders of CATU. But the founders of CATU said that a union should be a home where all political ideas of shapes and sizes are to be found, and none should be elevated upon the other. See, that's what was emphasized in NAPTOSA. As such, as a leader of the union in the province and nationally, one could not assume significant political positions in political parties.
Okay.
So we had to contest that terrain. So that's why I'm saying we learned a lot. There. Besides fighting for members, putting child first, as a union you have to defend your member. Even if your member is wrong, you must defend your member to the last moment. But professional ethics had to make some of us to recuse ourselves from some of the cases where we could see that society and the interests of the child were trampled upon, you see, and then it was only prudent and professional to withdraw. So no, I can't continue. Find legal advice and be there, because we could not resign from ourselves. We could not actually compromise. That's the word I wanted. We couldn't compromise our integrity as a union, as individuals. See, then we had to cancel the member to say probably the best way to resign, see, because we cannot defend you anymore. And you knew from the very word go. Probably we're just preparing a smooth exit. Otherwise, so we couldn't defend a member, see, beyond certain limits.
No, iyavakala mkhulu. From le nto uyithethileyo yoba ke wawunayo into i-desire to be i-CA, but ke ngoku kukho intetha ethi if you don't interfere in politics, politics will eventually interfere in your life, which I believe into nobana literal meaning. That's what happened ebomini bakho. Politics interfered in your life, even though when you interfered. Now masingena apha kwi-PAC into unfortunate is that i-PAC is not the ruling party, so every time sithetha nge-PAC kuyanyanzeleka siye kwi-ruling party, so incoko yethu izawuhamba ihambe ibe nezo zinto zinjalo. Now I'm not sure uba ube i-president yesingaphi or something utata Robert Sobukwe. Mandiqala apha kuqala i-question yami. Utata Robert Sobukwe was the leader, right? Ye-PAC. Okay. Now, njengoba waye-leader ye-PAC, I believe uba nawe wayeyinkokheli yakho. Yes. Were you loyal to the cause or you loyal to him?
Our dear leader, Sobukwe, he taught us to be rooted to the cause, not to individuals. He was a teacher, by the way, and he taught well. I don't think that he has been understood by many. I don't think he has been appreciated much. When one goes through his speeches as a student leader in the Success 40 in 1949, a year after apartheid was officialized, as a Secretary General of the Congress Youth League of the ANC, at that time, who crafted the Youth League Program of Action of 1948, which became the Program of Action of 1949 of the ANC. He taught us about.
Copying the food. Robert Sobukwe crafted what?
The Program of Action of the Youth League in 48.
Of the ANC.
Which became the ANC Program of Action of 1949. Which was adopted when they had to influence which leader would continue in the ANC. And they had to push James Moroka to be the president of the ANC because he's one leader who accepted to lead with the program. It was a revolutionary program because it's the program that took the ANC from the comfort zone to challenge the status quo. The defense campaign of 1952 against unjust laws was a direct product of the 1949 Program of Action. Leaders in front, no bail, no defense, no bail. That was the influence of the Program of Action of 1949. And Sobukwe taught us a lot of things. Not to collaborate your principle, not to compromise your principle with the enemy. But he prophesied that one day we'll be called around a round table where we won't identify our enemy clearly, and some of the then leaders of the liberation movement will be one away from the liberation struggle. What we've seen nowadays, it's what Sobukwe wrote about as early as 1949. As the first president of the PAC in 1959, and which is the founding president of the organization, he addressed the Congress in April 1959 in Orlando. And one of the critical things is he advised the whole country, the whole continent. Remember 1959 was 10 years since China got independence. In October 1949, India had got her independence from Britain in 1947. Then Southeast Asia was getting her liberation through early 50s. And Sobukwe said, with the independence of the Southeast Asian countries, Africa will become a new hunting ground for imperialism. We knew then, Sobukwe warned us. What then happened later on is not a surprise. We've stayed on course. Whatever shortcomings the leader might have, as long as we focus, on what the struggle is all about, the principles, that's what carries us forward. In the space of politics, there will be factions, there will be groupings, there will be cliques, there will be infighting. The PAC is not immune. Sobukwe warned us. what then happened later on is not a surprise. We've stayed on course, whatever shortcomings a leader might have.
Yes.
See, as long as we focus, you see, on what the strategy is all about, the principles. You see, that's what carries us forward. In the space of politics, there will be factions, there will be groupings, there will be cliques, there will be infighting. The PAC is not immune, you see, from the whole thing. And we've been part of that for the past 33 years.
So at that time, when Mr. Robert Sobukwe is the leader, is the PAC a movement, or it already transitioned, you know, to a political party?
We were to be a movement in power. I'll borrow from Amika Capra when he was asked about the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau and the Cape Verde Islands, that what PAIGC was. He said, yes, our reference is that we're a party, but more importantly, Bona, they see themselves as a liberation movement in power. I'm using this because the reference by the founder, leaders of the PAC, was that the PAC is a party.
Okay.
As a party, you represent a certain class in society. And Sobukwe would say, we represent the downtrodden, the toiling masses, the illiterate, the poor, as the key and the cornerstone of the revolution. But the PAC remained and still is a liberation movement until Africa is free, until Azania, as we call South Africa, is free. So we shall continue on course. But after attending a conference in Accra in 1958, invited by Kwame Nkrumah, Sobukwe came back inspired. Actually, all liberation movement leaders at that time were inspired. 1963 was put as a year where all of Africa must be free. When the OAU was established in May 25, 26, in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia in 1963, it was a time to reflect what had gone wrong. Where did we miss the ball? Because a very few African countries were free at that time. Of the 52, you see, that we have, and we had to see Ghana for that. But PAC, in 1960, when we launched the anti-pass campaign, not the anti-pass campaign anyway, but it had to have a flavor of resistance and radical challenge. Some of the leaders in the PAC were not part of the campaign as it unfolded in 1960, were already outside of the country. Sobukwe had prepared ambassadors. Professor Denayana, for example, was one of those who were in exile already, so at that time. He didn't run away because there was an anti-pass campaign, there was banning.
Yes.
So they were already out, somewhere in USA, UK, in the East Asian countries. We had offices in Jakarta, Indonesia, we had offices in New Zealand, because we were preparing for a takeoff. Uncle Zaf, the president that followed, after Sobukwe internally, Stefania Mutupeng, was the leader and inspiration of the June 16 uprisings, was a Minister of Land Affairs in the cabinet, in waiting, Sobukwe, not in the NEC.
Oh, right.
So yeah, you can see that there was a preparation, you see, of a government in waiting. Even when Sobukwe addresses,
So the strategy was
yes,
put in place.
yes, when he addresses Congress, as 1959, you will not be talking about chairperson. You see, it would say, Mr. Speaker. You see, then when you was addressing, you could see that, you see, they had a vision.
Okay.
That by 1963 we need to take off.
All right. Mkhulu, you know, so uthi kule nto wayekuyo wayime Nkrumah, yes, we were president yasekhaya at the time. You know, ngohlobo ndikumamele ngalo, you know, ngenene nyani i-Africa ine heritage e-intellectuals. Because aba bantu uthetha ngayo, you know, there's a quote endiyithandayo ngoKhume uthi xa ndicela uyimquta mkhulu sizongena kulo mcimbi lo okanye kanye. Uthi uNkrume, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of the African continent. Now, babethetha ngelo xesha mkhulu. Now, if usingakhe sindithi apha kuwe ngoku ndikuchallenge ndithi the independence of or the freedom of South Africa is meaningless unless it is linked with the freedom, with the economic freedom of all South Africans.
Yeah, certainly. South Africa is not even free. As a teacher of economics, I would tell my colleagues and say, to be honest, we don't have a national economy in this country. When we have to defend the economy, the question is whose economy? The mining sector as a whole, it belongs to Europe and America. Whether it's Anglophile, Anglo-American, even if you go to those which are named with African names, the Sebanye Gold, Harmony, all these things, or Lone Mill in African, it's London mining in full. So therefore, we have minerals in the country, but we don't have mines in the country. Even the billionaires that have been created through the mining sector, whether it's Ramaphosa, Tushanduka, where there is Mtsipe, his brother-in-law. So those people were just friends, you see, of the European people. And therefore, we don't have an economy to speak of. Just think of it. We're using cell phones from other countries. We have laptops from other countries. We don't even have a car. You see, this car. We don't have even a small engine, even a lawnmower. You see, we make nothing. You see, as a country. We even import toothpicks. You see,
you know, le ithetha yona kwethu into athethileyo ngayo, it goes back to imperialism lebethetha ngayo.
Yes.
uThomas Sankara uyi-addressile loo nto leyo, wabuza into nobana apparently uthethile ngale nto kwi-conversation awayenayo naloo nto ethetha nayo, wabuza loo mntu uba where is imperialism. Wamphendula uThomas Sankara wathi, look at the plate you eat. The rice is imported. The maize is important. Wazibhala zonke ezinye izinto. Now I'm just mentioning ndikota lo conversation.
Yes.
But yena ngokuyaqonda ubana everything njengoba sihleli kule tafile njengoba sihleli apha
we have nothing.
uzitsho zonke izinto into yobana this is imperialism. Siphila yona umzekelo the microphones we are holding.
Use it right now.
Exactly. So yile nto imperialism ebethetha ngayo uThomas Sankara athetha ngayo. You know, uThomas Sankara was against into foreign yo adopter foreign models. Yes. Ndingaqala ndikukhokhela okanye ungakwazi usikhokhela ngale nto foreign models because sekunje nje I believe ile adoption ye foreign models. Umzekelo kwa education. There are models that are extracted from other countries or imported from other countries. Zize apha xa zifika apha zingasebenzi. Xa zifika zingasebenzi apha. Umzekelo uthi apha uNantsika xa eyithetha bendifunda enye incwadi ebhalwe ngu-S Malusi on leadership. Uthi the failure of models esinazo apha iyaconfirma by an old amagama makhulu ke mkhulu ngingakwazi nowabiza uBhambarang proverb by Professor Kizebo. Incwadi yakhona it is titled Another Man's Mat. According to the proverb ithi ke sleeping on another man's mat is like sleeping on the ground. This proverb explains a historic truth, not just a truth but a profound truth. It knowledge that a developed model imposed from outside can never develop in a country.
Yeah, certainly. If you go to China, even their politics, see, they would say we have our own Marxism with a Chinese flavor, without your own indigenous knowledge system. So there's nothing you can develop much as a country. All countries, even as a student of economics, when talk regional development, so one of the principles is that for it to be sustainable,
Yes.
you must have your own values, you must have resources that you can produce and develop locally. Now, if everything depends on importation, look now, there was the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, okay, with Russia invading Ukraine. Because those two countries, just those two countries, they produce 40% of the wheat that is consumed in the global market. Just two countries. We'll go back to the whole thing of the Ukraine. Bread price rose in our country.
Yes.
Yes.
Miles and miles away from Ukraine. Cooking oil, short. One who's cooking would rather now probably use petrol or diesel to cook, and then cooking oil be used for cars in what has befallen us. Then the question is, was it necessary? Is there no other country on the continent with vast lands where we could have sunflower oil produced? Don't we have enough land to cultivate wheat? Why do we have to be net importers of wheat in our country? The continent is rich enough in terms of soil fertility, and we could conduct soil science and see what crops are suitable for our continent. We don't need that. Africa is producing things that she doesn't use, and uses things that she doesn't produce. See, and that is a problem. That is a problem, see, of the whole continent. And therefore, see, it means we will always continue to have a problem of underdevelopment. If we read the wonderful literature by our dear father from Guyana, Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, he explains, see, how everything that we experience today is not an accident. You become angry alone when you read the book. How European banks got rich out of the slave trade, like Barclays Bank, which owns Absa. How companies like Unilever, whether you take Rama or take cosmetics, see, there's always going to be Unilever brand. It used to be Lever Brothers. See, those are British boys that got rich out of selling sunlight during the slave trade. So this is an indication that small things that we need to ponder on. See, the dependence of our countries, Africa specifically, see, has been an engineered thing. How leaders rebelled for economic independence of Africa were assassinated, poisoned, killed, see, all these things. Whether it's Sankara, whether it's Cabral, whether it's Lumumba, whether it's Biko, whether it's Obukwe, see, whether it's Josiah Togogara in Zimbabwe or Herbert Shogudze, Samara Machel, Eduardo Mondlane, see, the list is endless. See, all those. Nkrumah had to be overthrown in Ghana. Seguture had to be overthrown in Guinea. See, there's a lot that happened. You see, then it means, see, we are operating in a system where imperialism has closed all over. See, this is why, see, the whole question of development has to be on our own principles, our own resources, see, so that we are independent and insulated from economic disasters of dependence or over-dependence, say, on Europe or in other countries for that matter. See, it becomes a problem that we need to confront head-on, see, so that we are able to reach the level where Europe is. Because Europe at some point was backward, Southern Africa. We taught them writing. The history that we taught at grade 1, grade 7, so it tells us we invented writing, hieroglyphics in Egypt and also in Mexico, in the Aztecs and Incas. So at that time, so Europe couldn't write until we taught them. We taught them mathematics. Pythagoras came to start for 12 years in Egypt. Now
dropping gems.
Now then he stole our ideas, and then you are now told the theorem of the right angle triangle, which was used to build the pyramids, is now Pythagoras' theorem. So there's no such. So the question is, where was Pythagoras when we were building the pyramids? See, when we were building the cities of Mapungubwe, see, where were the Vikings that created England?
Exactly.
See, those were barbarians. We invented fire. See, then Bona, they were still eating raw meat. Then we cooked fast.
Oh my God.
We produced clothes fast. And we produced dyes fast. You see, we produced, we had precious metals, then we produced jewelry fast. So when we were trading before subjugation, because we need to retell this of development, even politically. We have to retell our story. For them, we were told that Jan van Riebeeck came in 1652 and that was the start of the problem. That is not correct. That is not correct. Because the Portuguese had come here as early as in the 1400s, 1420. They invaded the mouth of the Senegal River. They came down, they were defeated. See, they went back home, they came back, we were trading, we quarreled, we defeated them. They probably even 4 times. When the Jan van Riebeeck came, let us go back and reread that history. He was given instructions. One of the instructions that Van Riebeeck was given was to build a fort through the Woop. And that fort had to house 80 armed men, soldiers. Jan van Riebeeck had a simple mandate to come and start a process of killing us. He was not a tradesman. We had traded with Europe for years. But what Jan van Riebeeck did was now a military, intervention. What?
To kill us.
To kill us.
They want resources so that they
and
can take
they
over.
are being beaten before.
Yes, but that's simple. And we need to read that history from the manuals of the Portuguese, as in when they were writing their own history of the interaction between other nations outside of them. And then we then found ourselves in a cultural, offensive of Europe. They had to use the cannon, the gun, the musket, and then they came with the new culture, the Bible, a lot of things. Actually, it was a papal decree, that we had to be Christianized. The Pope, the instruction from the Pope. As the 15th century, in the 1400s. So it's not a new thing. So when the Christians came with the British in the 1800s, it's not a new thing. It has been decreed a long time ago. And then they came not to even convert us. They came as chaplains of the armies so that we could be defeated. So that's the thing. So, but the whole point is that we need to reclaim a lot. We had civilization advancing in Africa. We were only disrupted. We were not discovered. We were disrupted. In terms of our own progress, in the political history, of this country, and also economic development. One example around this issue of development, economically and beyond all. When Nongause was as a Holocaust on our side, they came in, where we had to destroy almost 400,000 cattle. We were better farmers, we were prosperous farmers than our invaders. They didn't bring cattle in, so we had our own cattle. And because we had plenty of land to graze, we had bigger size of cattle. The Ngunis, you find around Port Alfred and other areas, they are bigger than some of the European breeds. But because now we've been drawn into the areas where we're in, our cattle became smaller and smaller. That's a genetical problem.
Okay,
See,
yes.
Otherwise, where we could graze them so they can be bigger again. My father used to tell stories of how they used to interact with the shopkeepers, you see, the German shopkeepers who were owning shops. We were trading. We would plant maize, sell maize to them, plant beans, sell beans to them, but they wouldn't give you money.
Oh.
And they would give you things that you needed. Either you needed sugar, you needed rice, you needed whatever. So you get that in exchange.
Oh, that's what the story of ESP.
Yes, but when you want those things during the months where you no longer have them, so you have to pay.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
This is why systematically we were converted into the wage slave labor, because that's where we get the money. The agenda of Nongause was to enslave us, you see, to work in the mines, because they needed labor in the mines. And therefore we had to lose our economic livelihood, then that's what happened. So that's why the whole issue of genuine economic development in the country needs the indigenous knowledge systems, it needs a genuine empowerment of our people economically. So the young people. We need to have youth farmers in a deliberate way. It does not have to be an old person thing, this thing of farming. We need young farmers at an entrepreneurial level. There are so many of our graduates in the agricultural sector. So I'm happy there's a program already that's organized by the Department of Rural Development to empower young entrepreneurs, so that you have farmers even in the African communities also being empowered. So this has not become a white thing. This becomes a Boer thing or an African thing. See, to have farmers who are molded and groomed from a very young age. Because it's a multi-billion industry, farming in this country. Sadly, they've mortgaged our land to ABSA. And then ABSA is taken over by Barclays. So when we want to reclaim our land, we could find ourselves in a war against Britain, defending their interests. But now it's their land. It's their land.
Their land in Africa.
Yes.
In South Africa specifically.
Yes. If you go to the Western Cape,
Sure.
you see, we have done things that are not done in other countries. Selling land, not the right to occupy. See, and then we'll be engaged in wars with European countries who want to defend their interests.
So if we want land, we need to be ready for war.
Ready for war. We can talk big and small English about expropriation of land with or without compensation and all these other things. So we must be prepared for a confrontation. When we discuss these issues in this country, they are discussed in the European Parliament. You see, then we need to be ready for war. We must be ready for sanctions that have been imposed upon Zimbabwe. So therefore, when you be brave enough, we must be prepared to suffer if it needs be. But it might be a good thing. So that Africa must come together, and then we need to develop, probably develop faster and quickly, without attachment to the IMF and the World Bank in terms of the loans that they give us.
Uchaphazele iZimbabwe utata Mugabe sasiyihleka sonke la echaza into nobana keep your Britain or keep my Zimbabwe. Imephi iZimbabwe ngokunkulu? iZimbabwe siyayazi sonke uba economically noko singentla kuyo, but ifumana phi support abantu bakhona? Ngiyayibona naba ngoku kwi-borders zethu bagcwele pha phezulu bezama ungena this side.
The mistakes that Abu Mugabe did was the mistakes that we have done. We have not learned. When they negotiated freedom in 1979 in Lancaster in England, there was a clause which said, we will allow you to keep the land for 10 years. In that 10 years, you must train Zimbabwean to be commercial farmers. And the British who had settled the settlers didn't honor their side of the bargain. That was the first problem.
Okay.
1990 came. Then the Zimbabwean government came knocking. Said, okay, we had a deal, give us our land. Then this settler said, what are you talking about? You were in Lancaster? Okay, can't you go to Lancaster? You see, we're not there. Then you come, we go to England, and then the British said, Hey, but there was a unilateral declaration of independence then. So we have nothing to do with you. So you go back to Zimbabwe. So then there was that anger where the so-called war veterans took land and whatever it was happening at that time in Zimbabwe. Before 1990, actually, there was another problem that befell Zimbabwe. Around 1988, there was an IMF and the World Bank program, or what we call the Economic Special Adjustment Programs, where the funding from the IMF and the World Bank had to be changed from project-based funding to policy-based funding. They had to interfere in how you design your own policies internally. They will tell you, you cannot produce food everywhere. You must produce cash crops like tobacco, coffee, so you are able to pay the loans. Cut your public spending, cut your public sector, and systematically. See, and Zimbabwe since 1988, 1989, the structural adjustment program, you see, in the economic sector, see, affected them, you see, negatively. See, what we see in Zimbabwe now is a program, is a project of the ESAP, of the World Bank and the IMF of the late 80s. It was not only Zimbabwe, it's even other countries. When Trevor Manuel took over as the Minister of Finance, it was a way of saying, let us prepare ourselves for an ultimate. Let us not be forced. Let us do our own structural adjustment, say, as a country. Hence, GIE had to come in and replace RDP. Because GIE, as a departure from RDP, was to focus on growth, big business, hoping that employment was going to trickle down, then redistribution was going to trickle down, we had to trust big business. But the RDP, as a noble macroeconomic policy, had to, say, build infrastructure, empower, okay, invest in social spending, invest in education, invest in healthcare, invest in, say, everything when you build infrastructure. And then the big ones are saying, oh man, you are delaying us. So we need to chase the rest of the world in terms of economic growth and development. So, but we've been changing policy after policy. GIE came after RDP. Then there was ASGISA because the GIE was low. And then when ASGISA was not fast, because it was acceleration. And then there was supposed to be GIPSA, you see, the job creation, skills development wing, what was failing. And then there was a new growth path. What's our new growth path? You see, now we talk, you see, NDP, and the goalposts are shifting. When I was chasing 2030, you see, we had thought by 2004, when there was supposed to be a 10th anniversary of the RDP or the 10th anniversary of freedom, we were supposed to be somewhere. Okay, even GIE, ASGISA, see, it's about halving poverty, halving unemployment, halving this. You see, and then but the goalposts are shifting. 2030 is coming, 8 years still to come. We'll be in 2030, and 2030 will be 2050. See, we're told about these goals, see, they keep on changing. But the bottom line is very true. Without reclaiming what is ours, without reclaiming our economy, without uniting Africa economically, so that we are one market, one continent, one Africa, one home, one family, see, we can't progress. The division of Africa, you see, along borders, you see, and all these things. In Europe, you have a European passport. In the Soviet Union, you have a Soviet passport. See, these people are free to move. The free movement of factors of production, which is labor, okay, it's supposed to be there. Okay, we exchange skills in a free way. So without being confrontational against each other. Now there's queries, derogatory words, the Magwejas as derogatory words. So that is the beauty of imperialism, to keep us divided. To keep us divided. So there's a lot that you can gain from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has gold. Zimbabwe is chromium. At some point, 90% of the chrome that is used in the US motor industry came from Zimbabwe alone. See, Zimbabwe used to be a food basket in Southern Africa. So therefore, see, this has been orchestrated deliberately, winning their leaders. Big rhetoric, see, but suppressing your own people. Mugabe himself, out of paranoia, I don't know, they orchestrated a massacre in Kwabulawan, in Zimbabwe, where those in Harare, the Shonas, were supposed to be at war with the Develes and the Ngunis, and people died in the 1980s. People died. They died because of a suspicion that they were plotting a rebel government to overthrow Mugabe. And then it was called Kukuhahundi, so, and people were massacred. But that was to disunite Zimbabwe. You see, disrupt them from uniting. Interfere in Southern Africa so that we cannot be one. Interfere in building a united Africa so that we are not one, so that we are easily exploited, you see, as individuals. See, even from wildlife we can learn. You see, if the antelopes are not watching each other's back, the lions can pounce. See, if you look at how they graze, half they graze, others they chew with their heads up. You see, those derogatory words, the Magwetas as derogatory words, see, that is the beauty of imperialism, to keep us divided. To keep us divided. So there's a lot that you can gain from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has gold. Zimbabwe has chromium. At some point, 90% of the chrome that is used in the US motor industry came from Zimbabwe alone. See, Zimbabwe used to be a food basket in Southern Africa. So therefore, see, this has been orchestrated deliberately, winning their leaders. Big rhetoric, see, but suppressing your own people. Mugabe himself, out of paranoia, I don't know, they orchestrated a massacre in Kwabulawan, in Zimbabwe, where those in Harare, the Shonas, were supposed to be at war with the Develes and the Ngunis, and people died in the 1980s. People died. They died because of a suspicion that they were plotting a rebel government to overthrow Mugabe. And then it was called Kukuhahundi, so, and people were massacred. But that was to disunite Zimbabwe. You see, disrupt them from uniting. Interfere in Southern Africa so that we cannot be one. Interfere in building a united Africa so that we are not one, so that we are easily exploited, you see, as individuals. See, even from wildlife we can learn. You see, if the antelopes are not watching each other's back, the lions can pounce. See, if you look at how they graze, half they graze, others they chew with their heads up. You see, those after chewing they go down, those were munching they stand up.
Yeah.
See, that's what you have each other's back. See, we need to learn from the wild animals. So this is why lions may not be successful in hunting. You see, for days and weeks without catching any, you see, harvest. But because they eat bones first, then they can sustain for longer when they hunt.
In terms of uniting Africa as a whole continent, because I feel like in Africa a lot of countries are in dispute. Like you find in Nigeria, which is near Boko Haram, you have terrorists in these countries. Those presidents can't run their own countries, and then we are expected to unite all these 52 countries into one country. How do we actually accomplish that?
If you read history, what's called the unification of Europe, There's no such. Those were just wars. Where the Scotch and the English in Britain fought for 500 years. Yugoslavia, we had in 1989. It's 7 countries now. But they share the European Union, and as in Economic Union and non-monetary union, so as well. The devil means it is not impossible to unite Africa. Ukraine was the military hub of the then Soviet Union, but they at war with the neighbor. It's all about economics. All wars have an economic interest. All wars have an economic interest. Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all this. They are all creations of USA. All of them. They have nothing Muslim about them. Because how do you have other Muslims attack other Muslims? Therefore, it's a shame. So there's no such. Osama bin Laden, okay, if he's dead, may his soul.
He's dead.
When he was 20 in 1978, born from a very rich family, all rich family in Saudi Arabia, the bin Ladens, which are family friends of the Bush family in the US.
Yeah.
He was a project of the CIA when they were sent to Afghanistan. The reason when they were sent to Afghanistan was to drive back the Red Army of the Soviet Union. So at that time. But unfortunately things got wrong. That's a project. Boko Haram is a project. ISIS is a project. The jihadis in Mali, they are there to destabilize Mali so that they are able to loot the gold. So that is in Mali. For example, South Africa has diplomatic relations with Mali. Some of our comrades are in Mali today. They would brief us now and again that even the mining houses here are in Mali to have economic deals. Transnet is there to assist the building of the railway, in Mali. It is possible to unite Africa. We already have a trade agreement in Africa. I think it was established around 2011, 2012, which is called AFTA. In theory, it is the one where we're supposed to work as one common market, as Africa. But that's a starting point. We have a lot to say. We won't be waiting for oil from Europe when we have crude in Angola. The oil in the Ogoniland in Nigeria, which is used by Shell, Royal Dutch Shell from Netherlands. Even our oil does not belong to us. Corruption is created. The beneficiaries of corruption are the private sector, not the public sector. Because if you need a tender, it is going to be a private company that will win the tender. But the state must finance the riches of that individual. So therefore, you don't have any benefit to politicians or politics or society from corruption. It will benefit individuals and other private corporations. See, it is orchestrated, it is planned. It is planned. I'm not a fan of Gaddafi. Okay. But he tried his best. 3 days he was. But the idea was still alive. The United States of Africa. What Putin is doing, to say let us move away from the dollar market, so that the USA does not become rich out of the wars they create. This is why Africa has to unite. It is not an option. We have to unite. But all wars, in Burkina Faso there's a second coup in 1 year. It's a strategy. Once you start thinking about building your own thing, once you start thinking about having some of the mines and some of the resources for the development of the country, you must be overthrown. It is not in the 1960s, now in the 21st century. You must be overthrown. Ethiopia then had Eritrea. Eritrea, there is the Tigray region, see, where they want another separation, see, as it were. See, this is why they have to teach us, inculcate in our minds that we're not capable of uniting.
So are we allowed to have fear? For instance, you can see Haiti as a failed state.
Yeah.
You know, are we allowed to fear, you know, as South Africans, that we might face the same situation of having a failed state, you know, or we can still have hope?
The idea of a failed state is a creation of USA. It's a creation of Europe. The question is, what is Ukraine?
Okay.
Is Ukraine a failed state? Because they were voting on confidence and the removal of a president, and then they go for elections. And then when that leader does not favor Russia, they remove him. And then when he's in favor, they support and keep for longer. Now, if we have city-states in Europe, Luxembourg is a city-state. That's one town, is a country. Bosnia, Herzegovina, city, country. Okay. And then Montenegro, city, country. Okay. The question, how do you have cities as countries?
We have it here in SA also.
You see? And then here we have Orania, so they are trying it. But is it a model state? They're tried already. They can sustain themselves. So therefore, the whole project is a farce from the very beginning. Haiti has a tradition because it is a country that caught its liberation from a slave revolt. When they revolted against the French, then they established themselves and they dismembered from the French Commonwealth and whatever it was, and they became a republic. And they couldn't rest. Once you declare your independence, the big bullies attack you, and they must overthrow it. They must corrupt and rig elections. So, and then the question is it a failed state, failing, or failed? You know, it's like a verb. Where is it? You directly or indirectly induce the failure. This is why in the literature in economics, we no longer talk about underdeveloped countries. Because once you say underdeveloped, the question is, who underdeveloped them? Okay. And then you must say, no, I don't want that developing. You see, well, now you want to bring in some not to blame words, but uncomfortable truths about what has happened to us. If one would say socialism has failed, what has failed? Can an idea fail? It's not workable. What was there before capitalism was there? What happened when people were living as people? When people were helping each other as people? When people coexisted? When people travel across the globe without fear of being attacked? Even our own folklore, undwendwe luyamuka, isisu somhambi asingakanani singaphambili, ngemva umhlobo. So it means that you must appreciate travelers. You must appreciate tourists. Yes, to me, see, those are the things. See, that you are able to see, you are able to say, you cannot say we are not capable, of embracing each other. See, greed and individualism and nuclear family and all these things, they are latest developments of capitalism. See, the latest development of capitalism. So we couldn't, not challenge them. Okay, as an organization, even as a person, see, I did not just embrace the organization. I also embrace the ideal of a socialist society. Africa cannot unite under the present system because there will be wars.
Okay.
See, we need to have an idea of a Commonwealth of Africa. We must have an idea of a united Africa, politically, socially, so therefore economically as well. See, because that we were born. See, otherwise, we will be just engaged in vocabulary expansion, see, and talk shops. See, we have to unite Africa.
Alright. Mkhulu make sibuye sizapha ekhaya. Eskom is failing us currently. So uthethile ke ngento sichazazela into izinto ezenzeka ngaphandle eUkraine under the current crop of leadership as leaders isikhoyo. Sithethe ngeSouth Africa. Do you think South Africa can be rescued?
South Africa will not be rescued, but South Africa will have to rescue herself. The question is, do we have a people's government in the country? The answer is no. We don't have a people's government in the country. We do have a government, yes. Whose interests are those that are clear when you go to the macroeconomic policies? They favor the rich classes. South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world. Measured by Gini coefficient and observations by a lot of people. Well, there is a Gini coefficient, which is an index that is used internationally to measure inequality between the certain percentage of people with resources and the bulk of the population. South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world. I think we are competing with Brazil and Namibia. We need to do something, and very quickly.
Something like?
I like the phrase that is used by Public Service International, which is the union of public sector unions in the world. There is a solution to the failed public sector. It is the public sector. They resist privatization. Because privatization across the globe has proven itself not to be workable. It is not going to improve the situation. If SAA fails, what we need is a renewed SAA as a parasite. What happened to a failed ESCOM? We need a better ESCOM. We don't need to make our life difficult out of anger. Now they create this load shedding so that we are angry, so that we have to denounce ESCOM, we have to denounce the public sector, and then the IPPs, they call them IPPs, independent power producers. But they have not even unpacked what is in there. Are we going to have IPPs generating electricity and distributing electricity? Or we are now going to have ESCOM, the commission, in charge of the national grid, and the actual generation of electricity being done by the independent power producers, IPPs, who will then sell electricity to us. Therefore, ESCOM will be a buyer of electricity at a higher price to the markup. And then you can just imagine how much I'm going to pay for that electricity. Now, because we need political will to do things right in ESCOM and other parasites, not just on ESCOM. Because Transnet as well. When Maria Ramos was the then director of finance under Trevor Manuel, I won't discuss how they became boyfriend and girlfriend. So, but the issue, here is that she went to Transnet, and then we were all clapping. So she turned the press to turn around. Transnet is then respectable again. Okay, we're producing locomotives for Botswana Railway. We are doing the same in Mali. That is Transnet, a parasitic in the country. Which is having projects, somewhere, in Africa. So then, why can't we do the same? Why can't we have another Maria Ramos? So to turn the situation in ESCOM, to turn the situation, in SA. Okay, but corruption is the most expensive department in the South African government today. Without ministers, without the staff. See, but it's a lot of chunk and billions of the fiscals in this country. So we need to address this. Who needs to address that? We need to build a critical mass. We need to agitate, because one of the things that we did wrong in the process of fighting for liberation was not to tell our people how will they see and know that we've reached, at the doors of freedom. We failed that. Once we introduce an idea,
that's
the thing. Because if why is it that we say, I am fine, half of it better than no bread, all these things. See, they are used against us so that we tolerate things that are not good. I'm not advocating vigilantism, that we take law into our own hands and all these other things. But we need to build a critical mass. We must create a mass of people who question everything, who challenge everything, want to see good, and act so that good must happen in the country. See, it must not be left to political parties. Because the duty of revolutionary organizations, the duty of the liberation movement was never to liberate people, was to empower people politically so that they liberate themselves. See, you don't liberate people, so you don't become an agent and do things for them. See, to me that is condescending. So you look down upon people that they can think, they can act. Now we need to do that.
It really brings me to my question about, as I am born free, ignorant to politics, that is the truth, it's out there. Do we blame the government for saying that we're ignorant? Okay, is it us, as ama 2000s, who are ignorant towards the political state? And what advice can you give?
Ezi zinto wena Manando Africa,
yes,
even the current leaders
yes,
ezikhoyo pra, I think ingaya kulaa nto kuthiwa emakhaya thina xa kukho into engahambi kakuhle sibuyele exhantini sithi manyange nani senza njani nantsi yeyele. Ii-leaders zethu zine-advantage of going back, because fortunately ezi zinto are recorded. Ndimamelele into eteka ithethayo of athetha ngayo ye-questioning yonke into. Can I please nje uzawungena mkhulu ndicela nje ukhe ndikufundele ikoti kaSankara ethetha ngale nto nge-Buchananians, abantu base-Burkina Faso, relying on one's strength, believer kule nto unayo wena. Uthi bra, relying on one's own strength meant asking the Buchananian people to think about their own development. Most important, I think it is to give people confidence in themselves, to understand that ultimately he can sit down and write about his development, he can sit down, write about his happiness, he can say what he wants, at the same time understand what price must be paid for this happiness.
Certainly, the big critical mass, you see, one said whether we need to blame the government. To a certain extent, yes. If one observes, there was a phenomenon where you no longer see the prominence and the activism and the dynamism of the youth formations. If I may ask you, how many people know Azayo as the youth wing of Azayo? For probably 2 decades, the Inkatha Youth Brigade, IFP Youth Brigade, was a forgotten organization. then you have the ANC Youth League.
That I know.
Since Malema and his crew were dismissed,
Yes,
and then there was Oros. Who else is who's the current president of the ANC Youth League now?
I don't even know that.
They always have task teams, you see, so that you don't have the critical.
Ben Mamele last
They
week.
must there.
Ben Mamele last week upole Mr Malusi.
Yes.
Kubuzwa apparently i-youth league i-national structure yakhona base-Ukraine kuyabuzwa bayokwenza ntoni ubuzwa i-journalist ku-ENCA bayokwenza ntoni uthi hayi sakwazi uyiphendula loo nto xa bebuya uthi so you want to tell me into yokubana i-wing yenu iphume yaya e-Ukraine kwindawo nemfazwe without knowledge uthi no yayazi the-politicians uthi khanditsho ndithe kodwa sawuniphendula xa bebuya yabe icacile into yokubana bamke engayazi ndiyakule nto ithetha into yokubana youth league ngoku yintoni ukuve ngayo ithetha nge-youth league eyenza.
Yeah. If you can go to look at during the First Must Fall program, there was a glaring absence of the youth formations in the country. The YCL was created probably as an interest group, not even a voting bloc in the Communist Party. The PAC youth, the PACO, is also not in the limelight, not having an impact nationally. There are so many organizations. Even DA, the youth wing of DA youth, is not there. You see, we were DASO, see, where are they now? So, yeah, the whole thing is an orchestrated thing, so that you don't have a second layer of the youthful leaders. What they do, they co-opt certain individuals who are young, and then you are heralded as the youngest MEC or the youngest minister or the youngest this or the youngest that. You must be co-opted out of a youth formation. See, so the youth formation is on its own does not, you see, come to prominence. We at some point we had a youth commission. Then there was this thing of some youth fund, NYDA, and all these things. When these things were established in 1995, so there was an idea that we need a Minister of Youth Affairs. And if you cannot have a Minister of Youth Affairs, because the deals in Condesa, so that you don't have a big government, would have a youth commission working under the office of the Deputy President nationally, office of the Premier in the provinces, and then they would need to address the core function of the youth ministry. Okay, but that died. That died. It's just, annexures, you see, and footnotes in policies that need to embrace youth wage. You need to embrace this. But what is youth wage? Now you are baptizing the youth into slavery. See, because the youth wage would naturally be not at the same level as the wage that is asserted in the chambers. So for that, now what happens is basic, there's this, and then there's 350s, there's the EAs and GAs and schools. See, so that to pacify the youth that could be angry. The unemployment amongst the youth people goes about 50%. The Kwaito generation, so people have to be deculturized. So if you listen to the content of the Kwaito music, of course some would raise social issues.
Yes.
But very few of them would raise radical issues of our times. See, none of them are able to be there. So there's this man from Uganda. So he's an artist, he's a musician. He was challenging Museveni. How many of the Kwaito musicians are in politics?
None.
Yeah, you see, is it an accident? Deliberate? Now, people must be sold, you see, a certain narrative of young people who are reckless. If you go to entertainment parties, booze must be there. Okay. You can't have a party without booze. You must drink to nothingness. That's a challenge. when the people who established the Nationalist Party came together, they were young people. All together, they were young people. Even the Reverend of the Enreker was part of that group that created the African Brotherhood in 1918. Those were young people. So, and they had to challenge the British domination in the South African economy. And for 30 years, they built a foundation of a takeover before 1948. What happened in 1948? It took 30 years to build. They took over Sanlam, Sampo, say, a lot of companies, South African Railways, Habas, and then see, they had this thing. Now they have Capitec, ShopRite, and all these things. And then they're controlling, you see, DSTV, multi-choice, so everything, NASPERS controls what you read, see in the papers. It is controlled by families in Stellenbosch. So those were young people. They were young people when they did that. Christoph Wiese, see, and the family. How old were they in 1962 when ShopRite was Spaza Shop? So now these were young people. These were young people, and the generational wealth in those families. They planned this thing. When someone was the president of the PAC, he was 34 years old. See, when Biko was killed in 1977, he was 30 years old, born in 1947. So, now, these were young people who had written volumes of books. How many youth writers do we have? What is the content of their writing today? Yeah. So this is the miseducation that has been deliberate in society. So that is a problem that we have. So now you have average politicians who are popular out of propaganda. Okay. For them, my money is a failed project. So he was in SASCO, he was not even a serious student activity at that level. So now I'm told he's a pastor of a church, married to a white girl. So, and then he's parachuted into the DA, wrong script, chopped off. Now he's building a new party. So now what's happening, what we have is that we have mediocrity, you see, elevated into something, you see, that we need to be inspired about. So, and then, unfortunately, we are not going to find South Africa back to its feet, so in terms of reclaiming the land, reclaiming development, you see, and then homegrown development, not to be given as a ready-made policies and programs and directions. So as even educationally speaking, so with OBE as a failed experiment in Australia was taken here. We had to have technology education 2000, and then all those we've been trying to change, modify, build something. See what we're using it. You know, we design a car, but already driving it. So you might chop and change, and then until you lose direction. So, of course, the content could be fine, but there's a political agenda. There's an ideology. So that must drive that education. Okay. We must produce labor. We must not produce owners.
Okay.
So that's
Tata Mandela, Tata Mbeki, Tata Zuma, Tata CR. Andizazi mandibuza ntoni. But ikhona nje lona ihlomna.
I would say Mbeki was a better leader.
Okay.
It was by families in Stellenbosch. So those were young people. They were young people when they did that. Christoph Wiese, see, and the family. How old were they in 1962 when ShopRite was Spaza Shop? So now these were young people. These were young people, and the generational wealth in those families. They planned this thing. When someone was the president of the PAC, he was 34 years old. See, when Biko was killed in 1977, he was 30 years old, born in 1947. So, now, these were young people who had written volumes of books. How many youth writers do we have? What is the content of their writing today? Yeah. So, this is the miseducation that has been deliberate in society. So, that is a problem that we have. So, now you have average politicians who are popular out of propaganda. Okay. For them, my money is a failed project. See, he was in SASCO, he was already in a serious, student activity at that level. So now I'm told he's a pastor of a church, married to a white girl. So and then he parachuted into the DA, wrong script, chopped off. Now he's building a new party. So now what's happening? What we have is that we have mediocrity, elevated into something, that we need to be inspired about. So, and then, unfortunately, we are not going to find South Africa back to its feet, in terms of reclaiming the land, reclaiming development, and then homegrown development. Not to be given as a ready-made policies and programs and directions. Even educationally speaking, when OBE as a failed experiment in Australia was taken here, we had to have technology education 2000, and then all those we've been trying to change, modify, build something. Whilst we're using it, you design a car, but already driving it, so you must chop and change, and then until you lose direction. Of course, the content could be fine, but there's a political agenda, there's an ideology that must drive that education. We must produce labor, we must not produce owners. That's
Tata Mandela, Tata Mbeki, Tata Zuma, Tata Sihara. Andizazi mandibuza ntoni, but ikhona nje lona ihlomla.
I would say Mbeki was a better leader.
Okay.
He was brave in the defense of Africa. Whatever he was doing in the country, but the man was a better leader. Was a better leader. Malusi was a man of the moment in his own organization. It is unfortunate that his reign is, I would say, been rendered to be synonymous with corruption.
Okay.
But corruption did not start with Zuma. State capture. State capture did not start with Zuma either. State capture started with the government as a government, because the decisions that were being made at the level of government, even in the Nationalist Party at that time, were decisions of the secret society of African Independence. The state was captured even then. Mandela is a project captured from the very word go. But to understand that, you must read his book, Long Walk to Freedom, the big one, the unabridged version. Then you know, who Mandela is. So that we don't criticize Mandela on the basis of those who like him and those who don't like him. You must read his own book, his own confessions, of what transpired behind closed doors as we are negotiating our freedom and liberation away. CR as a current president is another project. Follow him from when he matriculated in Shawel, and he was funded by the Urban Foundation to get his only degree. He was funded to get shares in Sanduka and Nain and everywhere. He's a created billionaire. Whether he's a billionaire, I don't know. But the point is, he is not a people's leader. He's a project. That's why I'm saying, whatever misgivings I might have with Thabo Mbeki, because the transition from RDP to GIA to MGP were during his reign. As a theoretician and as a graduate of economic science in Sussex, England, he didn't do much. But I don't blame him. He represents his class as a middle class. his agenda had nothing to do with us. You remind the SSCP that talk of socialism somewhere there. Okay, we don't tell you what to discuss in the SSCP. Don't tell us what to discuss in the AIDS. Therefore, puzzle. Contest elections if you want to. Fortunately, the SSCP is going to start as a political party with the IEC. It's up to them to contest or not to contest elections. Probably would have other leaders to appraise and also see where do they take us. But CR is a very brutal leader. Okay, he's a very brutal leader in the sense that what he believes in, he wants to make sure that it happens. Yeah. He was out of government during the massacre in Makakane. But he has not denied the fact that he wrote an email for the ANC government to intervene. Okay? Yes, the ANC government had to intervene. And he said that is not a wage dispute. Those are criminals. It must be dealt with criminally. Okay, that's it. But we're not surprised. We're not surprised. See how he moved up to where he is now.
Okay. The
interest he defends. Do you think a billionaire will defend people who are poor, challenge his power? See? No, we are naive to think that he represents the poor, the working class. Just because he was in NUM and a corporatized union, in nowadays, doesn't mean that is with the working class. He is not sympathetic. If he was a good leader, how would the staff in Lutula House, where he takes mandates, will be doing for wages? And then the man's a billionaire. So that's why I even wonder whether he is a billionaire. So whether he does have the money, or he's just a money, who doesn't feel anything for the struggling people. Even those who feed him politically. But that's a debate for another day. But the whole point is that these are all petty bourgeois leaders looking at the interests of the middle class, looking at the interests of the big bosses, and for us to be surprised. I'm only disappointed in the Communist Party not widening enough the audience of socialist ideas, not building an independent movement to take the working class forward. That's one organization. The biggest, I would say, nominally the biggest left-wing organization in the country is the SSCP. Okay, I envy them. If the PAC would be as big as the SSCP, probably there will be a greater, it's intervention.
Serious. Congress, National Congress, a month ago. Yes. By our acknowledge about 10,
So that could be a result of system.
Certainly, that's the truth. It's an ugly sin that one would like to forget sooner, and trying to build, on the positives as the party is growing on the ground. It is unfortunate that Limpopo happened, but the good thing, with the current dynamics now, the zeal to create splinter groups, it's no longer there. We have lost energy to create parallels, to create smaller organizations from within the fold. And we hope it will come around as we build on the ground. So the mandate I was given before I went to Limpopo was to lead the PAC in the province as an organizer, to lead political education, to lead structural organization, and we're on course. We are launching programs and projects on the ground so that the party grows closer to the people, the party rediscovers the mandate to inspire the African working class to reclaim the land and our economy and all these things. You see, one professor who addressed us as Namtosa teachers in PE, I think between 2014 and 2016, we invited to speak at a conference in PE, said very profound things, you see, in a very small way. He said, if you want to develop, don't go to war. That's the first one. That's a lesson, see, for all of us, whether in social life, whether in politics. The second thing, don't think that you can do it on your own, alone. See, and therefore, it means you must embrace progress also. You must be willing to learn from someone. Don't think that you are this big brain which originate of ideas and all those other things. There's nothing you can learn from other people. See, for the past 8 years, that has been in my mind. That comrades, let us not go to war, especially war within ourselves. See, otherwise, the enemy out there will just planning, see, how to loot our resources. You see, the next hour. That's what we're busy fighting. Okay. Old folklore, you see, in Zoli, as Gastrat, when there was this adjudicator or, you see, arbitrator, you see, in a monkey, see, trying to resolve it between two cats. Along a song as a massive, which is the cheese. Then they found the cheese anyway, it was not theirs. And then they were trying to fight amongst themselves. No, come, I'll resolve this dispute. Then you are saying, okay, what is the problem? Hi, Yankata, Leynane, see, Alumel Inkul, see, Alumela Kul, Sadak, Benunale, I bear Scali, see, the scale, see, hair of the law. Right? Then the one which was big is small, then Charles, there, in the bed. Yay! But the cats were discovering that, no, man, you're pale like cheese. So, now they said, no, of course, okay. See, it's foolish. No, stop it. See, these are legal costs, then this belongs to the court. They went home empty-handed. So see, if we don't learn from Ezantomi, if we don't learn from that wisdom, see, that is there, see, continue fighting amongst ourselves as a country, as organizations, as a people, as communities, as society, so we are going to suffer and imperialism is going to thrive. See, that is unfortunate. As we're conversing now, I don't know how many helicopters, cargo helicopters, have left DRC with diamonds and a lot of other minerals being flown to ships waiting somewhere along the shores of other African countries to take them to Europe, you see, and they don't buy them. See, now we're excited when we see these tags, see, on National Geographic, as if they are exploring, see, our beauty as a continent. See, you know, these people, after they get into the deep jungles of DRC, they discovered a lot of things they don't publish, see, and then they come back and ski. And then they come back, see, and finance wars. So that you told the rebels, say, are fighting for this and that. What are they fighting for? Nobody will tell you. So the late Alfred Nzo, see, edge of the ANC would say, no, don't waste our time. Those are thugs, you see, squandering as politicians. Let us not waste our time as diplomats and stuff. You see, the people laugh about it. So, but Ralph was correct. So, because even now, the war in DRC is orchestrated from outside. Nothing to do with the Eastern Tutsis and these ones and these ones. So it is to keep them at war and loot the resources.
So, Nkulu, yabona umamele. Mhlawumbe uyaqonda into nokubana even the infighting in the ANC ichaphazela thina because while beluse ifocus iBritain yona ibhesi ayimanga
It's the looting.
exactly ezinto befanele bayazenza bazenzela thina i-resources baziwaster ekulwaneni bebodwa endaweni yogcina lento bapreserve lento banayo basifide ngayo and feed themselves too.
If the billions that went to the Zondo Commission were in NSFAS, say how many will be covered? Okay. If the billions that go to commissions of inquiry about corruption went to building more universities in the country, the matrix would have a place to start. Okay. So this is a problem. So in the Republic, this is a problem in the Republic. And then there will be another commission to investigate Syria. There will be another commission, and it is going to waste millions, if not billions. Zondo is an unfinished story, but costs billions. There must be a process that must follow. How to prosecute those who are guilty. Okay. How to address youth unemployment in the process? They don't talk about those things there. Don't talk about those things there. So they'll talk about Guptas. What Guptas? You know, those cheap mafias from India. So now, we are made to chase. We are made to chase Amabuzi when impunzi baleka lapha. See, we're being distracted. We're being distracted.
So I think my other question will be, well, you know, election is right around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, I want to specifically talk about us as young people. You know, we, as a lot of us, we don't have an interest in voting. You know, is voting a system that works? You know, is it really important for us as youth to go into voting? How is that going to change?
Voting is just a confidence booster exercise. Power is not in parliament.
All right.
Power is not in cabinet. You don't decide in parliament what should happen with the rental of DST.
Okay.
You don't discuss in parliament what should happen with data at Vodacom and the collusion with CLC and ATA and MTN. You don't discuss in parliament what should happen with Wi-Fi in rain and whatever 5G does and Huawei does. So people sit there, they sip wine and whiskey and discuss serious business. Not in parliament, also in the boardrooms. There are not Democrats in the boardrooms. Your money speaks there. So that's all. So, and then as young people, as I said earlier, so if we don't have young people take over business, if we don't have young people take over politics, if we don't have young people taking over all kinds of people's power, the question is, how young is one considered to be young?
Okay.
With all the things. Can anyone who's a grandfather be considered young?
Okay.
With the problem of teenage pregnancy. Somebody at age 30, you see, will be a father or a mother. And at 35, we are supposed to be youth. Your firstborn gives birth and then you're a grandfather. Can you be a grandfather and still be youth? See, that's the thing. And when we say the young people, they start from age 18 up to 35. Are we really? What the youth are supposed to be at school. The youth are supposed to be empowered. That is 18 to 25 probably. At 26 you're supposed to be at work. So in South Africa you might not be at work even when you are 35. You might think that you are blessed if you have a permanent job at 40. Okay, that's the thing. You could be an intern for 20 years. You could be a casual worker in Shoprite for 30 years. And then you have a service for nothing. So that's the thing. As an EA, and an SGB paid employee for 10, 20 years, you don't have a pension. What have you accumulated? Nothing. So, and then are we really serious about empowering young people? As when they are young. So that when they are adults, so you have to build families, then they're able to be the future of the country. Okay, so that's the thing. Also, the whole idea of leadership in political parties is a problem as well. Because it's the stereotype of old people leading organizations and youth being token people. You see, just say gradually incrementally introduced into this big man foundation, see, which is called political parties. People have to be inspired. How the EFF grew is because the leaders were youthful and still are. And they see their peers. Either some they envy them or fight them, but there's an interest. But once we have a leadership contest of people who are over 70 and over 60, and there's no deliberate effort to empower young people, see, we might blame them for being apathetic, losing interest, you see, in voting. Because when you go to vote, what do you want to do? You say, your vote, let your vote speak. Speak what? Your vote act what? Do what? Okay. These are the questions that we must raise. So these are the questions that we must raise. If you go to the right areas, that's where I come from, we have women, young and old, involved in stock fairs, involved in community organizations, involved in NGOs, involved in co-ops, and all involved in this. That's great power. But that is power in Israel now. Okay. So they need to take it further. I used to commend Edaline when we were almost why can't we have a stage as one of Afbo? Why is it not what means? See, we don't create wealth. You see, why are we creating wealth for other people? See, yeah, true, but somebody must get rich in the process, any individual. Okay. I might not like the Bures, but Afbob is a better investment destination than many, because it's a mutual association, mutual society. It is owned by those who contribute. They didn't demutualize. They kept their thing. See, all mutual was a mutual society. Demutualized. Shares were sold. We bought them, sold them back, and then we surrendered power. Okay? And then, see, we're there. So, that's what I'm saying. See, in India, you have community development banks, women development banks, and all. Why can't you have that in South Africa? We have a rich history of stock fairs, even under NAFCOC, with NASASA, the National Stock Fairs Association of South Africa. The question is, why don't we have stock fairs growing into bigger corporations? Why can't we have another African bank growing out of the stock fair movement? So why are we depressed at that level? See, we are not changing power where it matters. We expect young people to just vote. It's voting. Voting is habitual sometimes. The old people who vote, see, even if they can't see, they want to be taken to the polls, or the special voting, they vote for the parties in their subconscious, not the parties in front of their eyes. So that's a problem. So that we have in this country. It means we have to remodel politics, the content of our politics, see the projection of our politics for our young people, not to be interested in politics, to be active participants in politics. In democracy, is not a spectator, it's a sport. It is a participatory sport. Participatory democracy will be the one that will be interesting to the young people of this country. So otherwise, we're wasting their time. See, we want to use them. Now, they've demonstrated they don't want to be used. They don't vote. Sometimes they don't even register. See, that's the apathy. So that's unfortunate. How will they intervene? There will be riots, toys, this, those, that. They know what they want. And then they want to demand them. You know, in 1995, when we were discussing pre-education, in higher education, and then we were called names, you see, trimmers, all those things. At that time, you see, very few of us had children. They could understand. Then fast forward, 20 years down the line, what happens? Boom, first passport, free education, you see. But the children, you see, they want to progress. You see, And it's a reality that as parents were helpless at home. See, they see their peers advancing. So unfortunately, in the country, the richest people are not educated people. You see, and then I was supposed to have young people interested in this.
Literacy unzima ndike ndafunda nenye into kuFacebook rather ndozikezayo kodwa but ndayiva uba yenza sense ukuthi ngesiphi if we were given or were taught financial literacy the way we were taught religion ngesiphi
Yeah, certainly. You are told, even in financial literacy, you are taught grade 8 and 9 EMS there. How to bank better, how to save better. See. You are not taught how to start a personal, establish your own bank. You know, so you are taught how to keep money in someone's bank. See, that's unfortunate. In economics, they come closer. So how do banks make money? Okay. Not how to create a bank. There's no module. Sorry about that. The only businesses you can create are your sponsor shops. Then even your accounting, there's even accounting for informal business. Okay, in grade 10, and then they teach you those. Okay, just to financial manage your thing. They won't talk about how to own a mine. You say how to own a farm and how to run a farm corporation. You see what's called AMP, Agricultural Management Practice, in the whether it's Woodoville High, whether it's a Bethel College or Clarkbury Agricultural High School. You are taught how to manage a farm, not how to accumulate wealth to own a farm and manage your farm. See, the education system is flawed. It's training wage labor, slave wages, you see, dependence. So it's not how to create wealth, own it, run it, socialize it, so that we all benefit from it. See, as it teach a lot. Okay. Into zamalima zizinto nje ze-social engagement, nje social, okay, so okay, there we act as a community. See, the unity is there. So, nobody would say, I know the job, never done better. Okay. At least those are good things. Though never with a guilty consciousness, but people still go and do a common thing. But we go. You just announce that it's your own thing, but the whole community will come. Okay, they help you slaughter this thing. You buy it, but you don't own every part of that. You see, they're entitled to certain parts of your ox. So they do that. So, but those are in the subconscious. Those are what have remained. Okay, you see, the subconscious. But we need progressive economic development. We need progressive economic empowerment in our lifetime. See, it must start with young people. It must start with children. It must be taught at grade R or even pre-primary. See, that we need to be wealth creators and owners, you see, as society. Okay. See, and unless that is done, you see, this is very belated. You see, you even call people to a training program. Take them to a training program where you train them to be entrepreneurs, to be business people. See, some will not be interested. Others will be interested in food that's going to be served in that workshop. So that's all. What is the last item? Okay, entertainment, prime, booze. So that's the interest some would have. Or I will go to get some tender money. Okay, if there's nothing. Okay, so from $1. Okay, there's no language. So then it's people because we are created to be dependent. That's very bad. That's very bad in the country.
All right. I think we're learning a lot today.
Yeah.
We are learning a lot.
No. You know, but one thing, and you know, is that in letters zethu kukho lento isho philanthropic leadership, philanthropy. If uzingakhe zibe nalo understanding, because I think the crop leaders ezazikhoyo back in the days, your Thomas Sankara, your Nyerere, your Mandela's, bonke abantu bubakhowuta apha bala mazwe. Those were philanthropic leaders. Isizasoba nditsho, you know, eligama sometimes yabona iBhayibhile enye into abantu abefundisi kwiministry yeBhayibhile kwi-Christianity babe influential kwaye futhi bakwazi u-influencer i-thinking ne-decision making yamahameni, is that they unpack everything. Umzekelo bazaxoxa ngeJerusalem uba uJeru umele into ethile, uSalem nto, then iyenze loo nto leyo iJerusalem a place of peace. Yebona le nto ithi philanthropy eligama kwalona bra if ungalohlula lilodwa le nto ithi philos lakho eligama lamaGreek.
Yes.
Eligama uphilos u-loving, anthropos human being. Now is simple definition ka philanthropy is loving for people, love for people, thanda abantu. Now if onyerere bakwazi into nokubana kwi-leadership yabo baqiniseke into nokubana balidisha because bethanda abantu, bane-interests zabantu at heart, into nenoba nzima kwabo bra if they understand the term philanthropy, beyazi into nokubana le nto ukuze ndibe yilide yiyo mandiqale kuqala izinto endizenzayo ndizazi into nokubana ndine exactly ilapho laa nto bra ilapho. But currently ngoku kuthiwa zinto zizitama politics, ayaqhuma izitama politics ngoku. Once ube in power uyacinga into nokubana unyana wam uzawuthini, ikhazini yam izawuthini, so that ingazulandeleka into ye-paper trail, okay ndingumajolo, ngumalusi yena ukhazini, so ayizulandeleka at least ukuthi asingumajolo sobabini. Niyayibona into ndiyitshoyo? So ehleli nje umntu ucinga into nokubana ilegacy erongo ke leyo, ilegacy erongo because uzama ukuthi family wealth.
Generation, but it's a family thing.
Yes, abantu abakho nto bazayizuza bona kuloo nto leyo, ifamily yakhe yodwa ezuzayo, of which that is unfair. That is unfair. But besuka apho ke ngoku because befuna bonke ufumana kule cheese.
Yes.
Babe bebodwa phaya, and ke ngoku isingesi sitsho, when the elephants or bulls fight, it's the grass that suffers. Exactly. Thina apha ezantsi siyafarisha ngexesha balona. Ngapha masivale manje umkhulu unawo into yokugqibela onovala ngayo nje kunafanele uyishile sizoyivala.
Yeah, I'm an optimist.
Okay.
I have hope that we'll achieve freedom. How long it takes, and Africa will unite. Thank you.
Siyabulela kakhulu. Siyabulela kakhulu, Mr. Q.
Okay.
You know, the contribution, what a wonderful episode. This was a very, very, very one of the momentous for us. You know, siyabulela kakhulu. You know, and to you at home, if you feel like you want a second segment from Utata, you know, there are other questions that you want to pose in, we can make a second episode happen.
Simple.
You know, because there's a lot of knowledge,
Yes.
we have little time. You know, even kwa umaster wetu ya soko at that time, payana, ama betri ayaphela, because, you know, the conversation is very deep, it's very broad, you know, and this is what we're trying to bring in, you know, and any other words that you want to add, Buddha?
Hayi, ndimnando isakela umkhulu uyigqibile na. Kodwa kubibi ngumbongo le nto ngoku ngesikulanda ngendikulanda wethu babe ndiyimbongi. Ndeyaham. Ndeyincinceleli. Iyo, ndingayivala nangesingesi ndithi if I was a poet, I would say ndeham. Ndeyincinceleli.
Yo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and please subscribe, you know, right after ubukele, just please subscribe. Do join us, you know, usibhatelele nje lo mali incinci, ungayifaka i-R2, ungayifaka nje i-R10, you know, so that sibe nayo some extra lighting, so that we can buy some extra mics, you know, just ukuncedisana just as a community. You know, what we are starting here and what we already started, you know, it's something that we wanna build in, siyikhulise, you know, and bring in more people, get to a point where we even employ. So please support us, you know, just by clicking in, you subscribe it, and then just watch with us. Otherwise, siyabulela kakhulu. We're going to meet next time from Black Man Season Podcast. We are out. In the Balekleyo, we are still black at least. Thank you. Peace.